Right. Okay. We're starting again.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to jump straight into it like I did last time because I feel like that was a bit abrupt. No.
It's all right. I'm used to that.
Well, how are you, Dad?
I'm fine.
So, what was the happiest time of your life?
Happiest time. Okay. That's a good question. And I think it's posed in the right way rather than saying, what was the happiest day of your life? Because I think when people pose that, they generally say, if they've got kids or they're married, they'll always say, oh, it was when my kids were born or it was when I got married, which I think is bollocks, to be quite honest with you, because I think those days are emotional. I don't think, I wouldn't call them happy, I'd call them emotional days. So I think that's the right question. What was the happiest time? I think the happiest time was when I was living with my grandmother. And I think from the age of about 19 to probably 27, 28, that 10-year period, I think was probably the happiest time of my life. I was young. I was free. I was single. And I just think the adventures that you have during that time of your life set you up for what kind of person you become in the future. But I think, that was probably the happiest times. Happiest period that I had in my life was probably that sort of 8 to 10 year period.
So not when I was born.
Huh?
When I was born, that was train wreck.
But when you and your sister
I'm
were born,
joking.
it was an emotional day. I mean, having children is having and bringing up children is a very difficult, emotional, stressful, and happy time of your life. But it's not all happy. Let's be blunt here. A lot of it is quite stressful, because you don't really, when you have your first child, you don't really know what you're doing. So you just kind of learning as you go along. And I think it's only now that you and your sister are now adults that, it's easier. But if you want me to be blunt and be honest, and you're asking me that question, what was the happiest time of your life? Then it was that 9 to 10 year period when I was living at my grandmother's. And it was kind of that period of time where you got no... there's no responsibility. You're not married. You haven't got a girlfriend or boyfriend. You haven't got kids. You haven't got a mortgage. You don't pay rent. You don't really worry about anything. So it's only when I look back now, and I think, that was probably the happiest continuous period of my life. Was probably that between 8 and 10 year period.
Okay. So when you had less responsibility, you were arguably that was the best time of your life.
Yeah.
So why did you start taking on responsibility, or did you not know at the time?
You do. It's part of growth. It's part of how you develop, and it's organic as well. You're not going to go through life and go, I'm not going to take on any responsibility whatsoever. I'm just going to sit here, and it doesn't work like that. And it can never. It's not. What's the word I'm looking for? You can't carry that on indefinitely. So as you grow up, you meet people, and then you meet people, and you have a connection with that person, and you want to spend your life. So you get married, and then it just organically it grows like that, and responsibility just comes with life.
Okay.
You can't. Anyone that says I don't have any, everyone has. At some point, they get some responsibility, whether it's they've got a car, they're responsible for insuring it, for taxing it, for servicing it, for putting fuel in it, But at that time in my life, I didn't even have a car, I didn't have anything.
So
don't lean back on that chair; it's gonna break.
Sorry, it won't happen again. If you look at someone, say they're, I don't know, between, very broadly, maybe 25 and 30, maybe slightly younger, and they have no responsibility, is it something you envy or something you kind of...
No, because it never lasts. So you have to enjoy it at that moment. Having no responsibility... I mean, all right, okay, you do have a responsibility, a degree of responsibility. If you have a job, you have to be responsible and get up and turn up and do your job. But I'm talking fundamentally about, you know, things like family, mortgage, rent, kids, you know, a car, paying for all that. That's the sort of responsibility I'm talking about. And at that point in my life, from about 19 years old until about, I suppose 26, 27, something like that, I didn't really have any responsibility. I had a job in the city. That was it. I didn't have a... I
Speak
wasn't,
a little closer to the mic, sorry.
I had a job in the city, and that was about it. That was my responsibility. Get up on time, get to the office, do my job. That's it, done. I didn't even have a car at that point because I was living in London, so I didn't really need a car. I got the train everywhere, got taxis everywhere. I wasn't married. I didn't really have I had girlfriends on and off, but I didn't have any kind of meaningful thing going on. Okay. I wasn't paying mortgage. I wasn't paying rent. I didn't have credit cards. I didn't have loans. I didn't have any debt.
As your son,
yeah,
what you're telling me is I should put off responsibility for as long as possible.
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, in the period of your life where you don't have that degree of responsibility, enjoy it.
Okay.
You know, that's the time in your life when you can go and travel. That's the time in your life when you can do new things and explore. And, you know, all right, you can go travelling when you're in your 40s, 50s, but it makes it a darn sight more difficult if you're married with children and a mortgage or rent. What I'm saying is, that period in most people's lives, I'm not saying everybody, because that wouldn't be correct, but in most, I would suspect, you've got very few, if any, responsibilities. So enjoy it. Enjoy the fact that you don't have the responsibilities, because you will get them. You will get them. It's a fact of life. You will get them. At some point, you might think, I want to go and get a place of my own. So you're going to have to pay rent or get a mortgage. You're going to have to be responsible for paying the bills, the shopping. You're going to have a car. You know, that all that is responsibility. So I'm just saying, while you don't have that degree of responsibility, I think that should be the happiest time period of your life. I'm sorry if people don't agree and go, oh no, it's when you have kids. That's stressful, man. You can't do what you want. Put it this way: you can't do what you want when you want with who you want for as long as you want. But when you're that age, from about 19 to your mid-20s, your world is your oyster. It's a cliche, but it is.
So, welcome responsibility when it comes, but appreciate it when you don't have it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
What's, conversely to that, what's so far, because I actually genuinely have no idea, been the hardest time of your life? And why, looking back on it now, honestly to yourself, what made it the hardest time? Was it something you did or something someone else did? Or
it was probably when your sister was born.
Really?
Yeah.
Up there.
Don't let her watch this.
Why?
That sounds really horrible. I don't mean it's because she was born. I mean that, your sister was born very early. Mm-hmm. And me and Mum, we were learning as we went along. But at the time, just after she was born, I was laid off from what I was doing. Oh, so I had to I had a responsibility.
This after you were in the...
After I left the city.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I got laid off. So all of a sudden, I'm married. I've got a young baby, and I've got a mortgage, and I've got no job. So you got to kind of just do what you need to do, and that whole, we were just people. We were parents just trying to learn it as we went along, and it was really, really stressful because we didn't have a lot of money. I set up the chauffeuring business, so I was working. I was doing everything. I had the phones. I was doing the bookings. I was driving. I was getting up early hours of the morning, late at night, so I wasn't at home a lot. And then obviously that caused arguments between me and your mum, and that was very stressful. And then, it was just a really, really stressful time, to be honest with you. We didn't have a lot of money then because it was, it was a tough time economically, financially. So, things go wrong or need repairing, you got to try and figure out how you're going to find the money for that. And it was a tough time. And then you came along, made it even worse.
You're welcome.
But having kids is, I think people sometimes look at it with rose-tinted specs. I know it's a bit of a cliche, but it's really tough. Be careful, I am your son. I know. You want me to be honest or not?
No, I do.
It is really...
I will cry after this.
It is really tough. It's really, really hard having children.
I'm not going to lie, it scares me. Like, I'm not anywhere near having kids.
No. But
the thought of being responsible for another human being is terrifying.
Exactly. I mean, it's the benefits are a millionfold once you get... Look, people don't say it because they think it's not the right thing to say. Oh, you can't say that. But having kids it's a fucking nightmare. Up until now, it's a nightmare. It's stressful. It's expensive. It's just all consuming. Everything you do is for your kids or your child. Everything. The future, everything you do is for them. And especially when you have babies and they're little, every single day, every weekend revolves around them. And so it should. Of course it should. But you have no time. Look, I believe everyone should have time for themselves, right? Even if it's just to, go off for an hour and just be on their own. But when you have kids, it's just all consuming, all encompassing. You don't get any time. By the end of the day, you're so knackered, right? You just, how many couples, you look at it, you talk to any couple, they will say there was a period when they had kids, there was a period where all they did was argue, they weren't getting on, they had no money. Every couple goes through, unless they're like so wealthy.
So from being someone who's like early in a relationship, and this is my first relationship, in case you didn't know, which I'm sure you were very aware of.
Yeah.
I get no women.
Yeah.
But you said that getting up early, going to bed late, and the tensions in the relationship with you and mum was something that you had to deal with as well whilst raising kids. What's advice you can give to someone like me, not necessarily in a kid's perspective, but just in that kind of idea of balance in life when it comes to relationships, when it comes to work? Because I find sometimes I struggle with understanding a balance and figuring out a kind of balance between a relationship, doing something that I really want to do, or a hobby, or setting my mindset, and not feeling like I'm drifting away from that person.
Yeah, but if you have a strong enough relationship, you should understand each other.
Yeah.
You should... I think sometimes it shouldn't be a thing where conscious you go, right, I think what we got to do is I'm going to have this time with you, and then I'm going to... It's a cliche, but it is a team sport, team effort. You have to understand each other. And I think having your own interests as well is very, very important. And your mum and I have only developed that over probably the last, believe it or not, probably 5 to 6 years.
What do you mean, develop what? Your own interests?
So, not necessarily develop your own interests, but it's like I say, when kids come along, it's all consuming. Your whole world revolves around...
Stay close to the mic.
Around what they're doing. So any hobbies or any interests you had prior to having kids,
Put on hold.
it gets put on hold. You forget about it. But as the kids get older, as you become more self-sufficient, as you become more adaptable, certainly when you start driving, when you start being able to go out, then you start.
What, the kids you're speaking?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Then you start rediscovering those things, like your mum, started going yoga and going back to the gym and doing that kind of stuff, and. I potter about in my workshop, and I've rediscovered I really enjoy that. So you just develop that, and you just have to have that balance. When you're in a new relationship in your age, I can't give you any advice. That you just got to see. This is why I say to you, don't wrap yourself up. I can't really say it. Don't wrap yourself up in a bird straight away. Right, there has to be a balance, right, and you have to go right. Look, I really enjoy doing this, and this. Right, and there's going to be some times where I'm knackered and I don't want to come over. I don't want to do this. It's not because I don't want to be with you. It's because that time it won't be well used. I'll just be knackered and I'll fall asleep. So I think there has to be a balance. Always has to be a balance.
But also, I think something I need to work on is that, but the other way around as well, where it's like, okay, sometimes I get too obsessed and caught up with the things I'm doing, that person feels like they're being
they're an outsider.
Yeah. And it's not because I want them to be an outsider. It's just because naturally I'm very hard at finding that balance.
Yeah. That's what it's about, a balance. It's all about a balance. Like, simple things like, today was a nice day, and I've been out on the bike for a blast for a while. I thought, I really fancy going out. Mum's doing dinner, so okay. Do you want me to give you a hand, love? I'll give you a hand, help you. So we did that together. Then she doesn't mind me going out because I've kind of been involved. And what used to cause friction when you and Mia were kids was that I wouldn't do that. I would just go, I'm going out on the bike and I'd go out all day. All day I'd go out 10 o'clock in the morning. I'd come back 6 o'clock in the evening.
On the bike?
Yeah. And I'd come back and she's all stressed out. And where have you been? I've been trying to read. I've been on the bike. I can't answer the phone while I'm riding the bike. I've had to deal with the kids. I've had to do, because I was selfish. It took me a long, long time to go, I need to be part of this team. And I think, you just got to have that balance. But having kids is difficult, man.
You're really not selling me the
No,
idea.
it's you know what? It's a beautiful thing.
Maybe I should just adopt.
It's a beautiful thing having your own children because there's legacy there, and there's moments when you're so proud. I can't explain it, and there's other times when you're so at a loss. You just think, "Oh fucking hell, what are they doing?" But it's watching that growth and thinking, "I was there. I was doing that. I remember that." And I think that's good to think of that and remember those things because it grounds you. If you can, how many times did you and your mates go out and you were not very well when you come back and you think, I know exactly how he's feeling. I've been there.
Is that why you take the piss when you found out I slept on a bed of chips?
Yeah.
in the living room.
Yeah. Because it's funny, it's banter and you just think, I've been there.
I'll tell you what, though, I'm glad the Ring doorbell wasn't something we had.
Oh, that would have been funny.
When I was 18. And
that would have been funny, watching you pick up your nuggets and chips from the doorstep.
The amount of things I've dropped on that doorstep and just kind of gave up on and just walked
No,
in
I
the house.
think any relationship has to be a balance, but it is difficult. It is hard. Any relationship is hard. I mean, it's all... What it is with relationships, they're brilliant at the beginning. You have that whole cliched honeymoon period where it's all... bells and whistles and roses and Millwall were going to win the FA Cup final and, it's brilliant. But then that reality kicks in and you're like, but I don't want to see her or I don't want to see him this weekend. I want to do something with my mates or I want to go out and it's like, oh, do I say something? And because you've been so intertwined, the moment you say, well, I don't want to see you this weekend because I'm going, well, why don't you want to see that? And that starts developing. So you have to then learn to kind of manage that and go, well, look, we're both individual people. We both have our own lives and our own friends. We can't be in each other's pockets 24/7. So I think the trick is to then, when you are together, value that time. Do something. Make it memorable. Yeah, even if it's just sitting watching a film. If it's a film you can talk about 6 months later and go, that film we watched when we said, oh, that was lovely that evening. It was a right, like, you know. And I think that's important, having that balance.
Is that why, out of interest, just randomly came into my mind, you and Mum are going away a lot more since me and Mia have grown up?
Yeah. Yeah, because we've never had the chance to do that. A, we've never had the money. B, you and... we couldn't leave you and Mia in the house on your own. We can't ask, you know, your auntie or your grandmother to look after you. It's not their responsibility, it's ours. So it's only really now, you're both working, you're your own people, you're adults now. We trust you know, to look after the house. So, and it's something we've always wanted to do. We always said, we used to speak about it all the time. Oh, it'd be nice when the kids are older, me and you we can go off and do stuff. And I always used to say to them, I can't wait till the kids are. We go to the pub and they buy me a drink, or they pick me up from the pub. You know, and it all happens. It all eventually happens. But yeah, that's why, you know, me and your mum now. Weirdly enough, we probably spend less time together now, but
the time's more.
Yeah, and we're a lot closer. We work more as a team. But we actually probably spend less time together now. But the time we do spend together, you know, we sit together, we chat, we do stuff together, we go away, you know, and I think that's important. But unfortunately, that comes later in life, you know. But prior to that, you have to have some kind of strategy, I think, a balance. And I think it's important to establish that.
So... going off the kids thing, I've got a few questions I've jotted down. I appreciate the preparation, by the way.
Okay.
A few. You can read them, but we'll wait for that. So, you said that kids are essentially really difficult at first.
Yeah.
Really nice when they get older and more independent.
Yeah.
But definitely worth doing. Yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay. What... me being obviously your son and Mia, how have we changed your perspective on life then?
I think some of it is... you know, it's weird to say it, but sometimes I think, if the kids saw me now, what would they think? Would they be embarrassed? Is this the right thing to do? I think there's an element of that, you know, like something simple, like all this road rage business. You know, someone cuts you up, and I think, is it really worth? What's the point? And I think, what would the kids think if they saw a video of me online, or they were in the car and I'm shouting and screaming? How embarrassing would that be for them? It's not, you know, and I think that changes your perspective. You know, what would the kids think if they saw me doing this or acting in this way? But I think as well, when you have kids, you kind of think, well, I need to make an effort here. I need to build something for the future. So I've left them some kind of legacy, some kind of something for them to carry on. So I think it changes your outlook in relation to how you feel about the future. You know? Before I had kids, I never thought about... I just about thought about the next day. Never mind 5-10 years. But, you know, since you and Mia were born, you know, you're always thinking, right, what's going to be my 5 to 7 year plan? How am I going to do this? How's this journey going to look? You know, how are the kids going to benefit from this? And when you have kids, everything you do is
So do you think, obviously you would live a different life if you didn't have kids, that goes without saying, but do you think you would have been as... if you never had kids...
yeah, I would have been a selfish prick.
You think it would have made you a worse person?
I would have been... I think if you don't... and I've seen it with my
You're welcome, by the way. You're welcome.
Oh, thank you very much, son. It's all because of you. I've seen it with generally people that... all right, you have... all right, there's people that can't have kids. That's different, right? But then there are people that just go, I don't want kids, right? And then you got to think, okay, it's their choice. But generally, there's a reason. Why don't they want kids? Is it because they don't feel they'd be good parent material? Is it because they see the difficulty that everyone else has? Who knows? But for me personally, I think if I'd never had kids, I think I'd be a selfish prick. I wouldn't be the person that I am now. It changes you having kids. Like I said, it's just I don't really know how to explain it.
So before me and Mia came along, you were a selfish prick.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. That was good fun though. Because who else do you have to think about?
That's interesting.
You don't have to think about kids or wife.
But
all
you
you think about is yourself. So if I'm gonna do so, I'm gonna think, well, how's it gonna impact me?
But you were so you grew up very, very differently to me.
Yeah.
And I'm very lucky with having your mum.
Yeah.
Constantly in my life.
wish I had a dad like me when I was your age.
All right, settle down. No, you are a pretty good dad.
Cheers,
But
boy.
it's interesting because you say, "Oh, now my perspective on life is whatever I do, I think would my kids be proud of me." I often find myself asking that question when it comes to choices I make in life. Like, how am I represented to my parents?
How would I feel?
Not even how would you feel, but
what would Dad think of this, or what would Mum think
because
of
I'm
this?
almost like representing
Weird, isn't
you.
it?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's like it's gone because you obviously grew up with you were with your grandma, and your parents, were they not very close, or were they? It was just that you. Because you moved out into your grandma's house.
I left home at 18 and went and lived with my nan,
Yeah.
so my mum's mum, and I lived there for 10 years.
And in that period, obviously, I'd assume you grew slightly distant from your parents.
Yeah, of course I did.
And as a result, maybe. Well, obviously, they wouldn't come into your mind as much when making decisions.
No.
You wouldn't think, what do they think? Probably the opposite. You would think, oh, fuck, they think.
Yeah.
But you've kind of, it's weird how like it's done a 180 where it's gone from that to now you're like, okay, now I've got kids, everything I do I want to make sure they're proud of me. What would they think? And I think the same about you now, if that makes sense. So it's weird
because
how
our
it's
lives
flipped
are
around.
intertwined. You know, we feed off each other. You know, what you see is, you know, when children are growing up, what they see when they're growing up is how they act. What they see, they go, well, that's acceptable because they're doing it. So as as kids grow up, that's how this whole argument between nature and nurture. Well, I think it's a mixture of both. You know, they say be treated how you'd expect to be treated. So, you know, if I'm in a situation, or if anything I'm doing, you know, I think, you know, what would the kids think of this? How would they feel about this? You know, I don't know, it's difficult to explain. You kind of, whereas before, I'd probably just I'm just doing it. I wouldn't even think about it. But now you kind of go, I don't know, how would the kids feel about that if I did that? What would, you know?
So are you more careful
Yeah.
or more...
I think I'm more, not necessarily more careful, but I'm more mindful.
Yeah.
I'm more mindful of what I'm doing, how I conduct myself, how I speak to people. I mean, you've pulled me up a few times, you know, where you've gone, Dad, why are you talking to her like that?
You've
you
been
know,
a prick, man.
Yeah, well, you have done. Don't be a prick, Dad. And I've gone, oh, do you know what? You're right. And I think that grounds you. And also, you know, before, but even when you were kids, before you actually started, you know, while you were still at school, before you started working, you know, if I went to a cafe or a coffee bar or something like that, and there was someone serving me behind the counter that was kind of your age, and something wasn't quite right, I'd be an arsehole. I'd go, well, that's, you know, I'd make a scene.
I hate people.
Yeah, not necessarily make a scene, but to me, this is going to sound really pretentious. This is going to make me sound like such a cunt. To me, I'm better than them. They're
Why?
serving me.
That is a bit
No,
cunning.
I'm being honest with you. This is the old Ed. You're serving me, not the other way round. So if I don't want that, you got to make me another coffee. Or if I don't like that, you got to do it again. If I don't like the way you've served me, you know, that's how I view things like that, right? Which is wrong. It's bullshit. It's only when you and Mia started working in that kind of environment, and you started telling me how people were like that, I'm thinking, fuck, I've done that a few times. Wow, how do I?
You haven't told us that either.
No, I've never told you that before. And I just thought, oh my God, that's someone's. I just spoke to that young lad, that young girl.
That's
They're someone's son, someone's daughter. They're going to go home and go, oh, Mum, Dad, this prick came in today and he made me cry. I could have made her cry. And I just thought, oh, wow. That was a light bulb moment. I thought, I'm being an arsehole. I can't talk to people like that. I can't treat people like that. And then my whole kind of thing just switched. And I'd be like, you know what? That's someone's good on them. They're just doing their bit. They're just trying to earn a bit of money. You know, if they drop something, I go, what's the matter with you? You know, but I go, don't worry. See, it was don't stress about it. Let me give you. So that certainly changed.
So I stopped you from being as much of a cunt, basically.
Possibly.
But maybe a bit.
Probably. Yeah.
Okay.
And then I've seen it. I've been in Costa, right? And a guy's in front of me, and I think it was a Costa in Woking on Lime Retail Park, and there was a guy in front of me, and there was a young girl, probably maybe about 20 years old, and I don't know what happened, but he was bitching and whining about this whatever she'd done, right? And she was getting you could tell she was visibly getting quite upset. She was a kid. And I had to step in. I couldn't hold myself.
For a swift right hand.
No, it wasn't anything like that. I just kind of, I just turned, I went, mate, she's just a kid. She made a mistake. Wind your neck in a bit, will ya? And he went, well, this is, and he started trying to, and I went, mate, I'm not going to get involved in this, but she's just doing a job. And I think he kind of suddenly realised what an arsehole he was being. And he just went, oh, well, sorry, and he usually, I've had a long day. I was like, fuck off.
Oh,
but I would never have done that. I would have just gone, all right, she fucked up. I'm not getting involved. But all I saw...
You feel a bit more responsible.
Yeah. And all I saw was, that could be you or that could be Mia. And I just felt so I wanted to go, come here, love, come here. Oh, he's an arsehole. Don't listen to him. So that weirdly, that really changed my perspective on things and how I operate and how, because I just thought, well, if I'm like that and you're with me, you just be like, oh, Dad, that's, I do that as I do this job. Don't be an arsehole,
Yeah. I've got another question, but I don't know how to transition to it because this is the first time I'm doing this, so it's not really like subtle at all. So I'm just going to plough through.
Oh, yeah.
So this will get better with time, but at the moment, you got to deal with what you got. You know what I mean?
I always have done.
Listen, I'm trying my best.
Yeah, come on.
Oh, I mean, are you proud of me? Are you actually proud of me?
Of course I am.
Why?
What do you mean why? Because of what you've achieved, of how you conduct yourself, how you manage yourself, how you hold yourself, how you talk to people,
that's enough.
how you engage with people.
Well, I'm proud of you for not being a cunt. So.
Lovely, thank you. I'll put that on my stone.
Right. What advice would you give your younger self?
Oh, right.
You don't like this one, do you?
Go on.
What advice would you give your younger self?
Yeah.
That I could benefit from.
Do what you feel is in your heart. Don't listen to anyone's opinions. If you want to do something, just do it.
Okay.
Simple as that. I spent, when I was growing up, I have told you this before. I actually wanted to work in archaeology.
You've told me that a few times.
Because
well.
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And when we were doing, so you got to remember, I was at school in the early 80s to kind of early mid 80s, and at that point, the whole finance sector was booming. So when I was people either worked in the print or they worked in finance, weirdly enough. So print or in the city. And we used to have, I don't know if they still have it. We used to have careers. So we used to have a careers advisor once a week. she would come in, and you would have a class with her. So you go through.
We had a careers advisor at school, but it wasn't a class or anything. It was literally just you go in to like a meeting.
No, they
they
made
just
this
talk to
like
you.
a whole lesson, a careers lesson every week. And I said to her, I think I was probably in our time, it would have been beginning of the 5th year. So what's that? So I would have been like the last year before I left secondary school. What would that be?
Year 11.
Year 11,
Yeah.
right? So there was this whole thing about, we're doing our exams. What are you planning to do? What do you want to do? And I said, I want to be an archaeologist. And she just looked at me like that, and she said, what, digging stuff up? It's I still remember it to this day, digging stuff up. I went, well, no, it's not just digging stuff up. It's learning about the past. It's learning how people were, how animals were, how societies were. It's not just digging stuff up. Well, the City and the Print is a very good career choice. So she gave me leave, and I ended up working in the City.
Do you think if that conversation went different, you would have worked in the City?
I
Or you
wouldn't-
would have?
I wouldn't have worked in the City. I would have probably gone to university. I would have done what I needed to do, and I would be working in archaeology or paleontology or something to do with history. I love history. Absolutely love.
You are obsessed with history.
Specifically,
I love history as well, but you are like
I love it. Specifically, like old, like societies and
Are you a big fan of like the wars, like World War One, World War Two, Vietnam War?
you got to learn about all that. But I like stuff like, the Romans. What happened to all the Romans? Where did they all go? Like the
Egyptians, the pyramids,
Egyptians, the period. That's the sort of stuff that I love. I love that kind of uncertainty. Yeah, who built these? I love that. We've got to try and find out that. I love that. And during that period, everyone you spoke to was, oh no, work in the city. And it was so easy to get a job in those days. Literally, you applied and you got job offers and you had an induction day, and it was just so easy. And I just listened to everybody. Oh, maybe they're right. Maybe I should, So if that's one bit of advice, if I could go back in time, I'd go, Ed, don't listen to anyone. If you want to do archaeology, just do it. Just go for it. There's nothing to, just do it. And if you don't like it, you don't like it. But I regret not doing it. I just think I should have just not listened to anyone. Because at that time, university was free. Not like now and your sister when they got to pay. When I was leaving school and going to uni, it was all subsidised by the government. So it would have been free education.
But they still were kind of pushing you towards the city and finance.
Yeah. Because that was what was booming at that time. It was all the banks, the brokerages. You only have to watch all the films that are out there.
Oh yeah.
That was all based around that boom time. People were making silly money. It was just, it was just crazy, just obscene. Were
you making decent money?
I was making good money then. Well, you think about it. When I started working in the city, I was earning, like a lot of my mates were, where I grew up in Bermondsey, there was a lot of, council estates. There was a lot of, not necessarily poverty, but it wasn't a rich area. So when I left and worked in the city, I had a lot of mates that worked, they were just labourers. Or they were they ended up just being a van driver or working in a factory or something like that. And I was earning in a week what they were probably earning in 3 or 4 months. So you imagine that. I'm 17, 18 years old, and at the time I was earning. I think I got copies of my first pay slip. It was £560 a month.
Really?
Right, my first. I'll show you one day. £560 a month
In the city. This is
in the city. Barclays. I was working for Barclays Bank, right? And I got my first pay slips. I've still got copies of them. £560, £520 a month. And some of my mates weren't even earning 30 quid a week. And so I'm 18. I've got all these. Oh, look at this.
Where'd it all go?
Zach, I was 18 years old. Where do you think? 18, 9. Where do you think it went?
No, I've spent all my money to be.
You
fair,
know,
I
it
ain't got a
wasn't.
lot.
And this is what I mean. You don't think about the future. I bought so much shit you wouldn't believe. I remember buying a remote control car
They're pretty cool. Come on, or
Yeah,
the
but
helicopters.
for no reason, and I bought.
But why would
what
you
else
buy it for a reason?
I bought a
It's the point.
typewriter-y thing. I'm like, what am I going to do with that?
You want it to write?
I just bought shit, you know, because you can.
Yeah.
Because you can.
I won't
And
lie
then
to you.
the whole thing of thinking I want to work in archaeology, you forget about it
Yeah.
because you think, well, I'm earning. It's only probably in the last 3 or 4 years I thought, Joe, I'd love to do that. I'd love to. I mean, it's because archaeology. What I would have loved is to and be one of these like Indiana Jones kind of type.
Yeah, but is that a fairy tale? Like,
No,
realistically.
I don't mean like all the adventures. I mean, you know, being in the desert and on digs, and you know, spending 6 months in some African desert or something. You know, we found these foundations of this
yeah.
civilization, and that I'd love. You know, and being all dusty and living in a tent and.
But I don't know if that's. I'm chatting shit because I don't know anything about archaeology. But I don't know if that's like a big section of the job.
Well, it probably is.
No idea. I don't know.
I suppose there's probably a lot of paperwork. There's probably a lot of research. But I would have loved all that. I'd love that. If you're doing something you love and you enjoy, it's not a job.
No,
It's doing something that you really love.
it's a bonus you get paid
Yeah,
for it.
it's a
like,
bonus
okay,
you
wicked.
get paid. Yeah.
Because you'll be doing it if you didn't. So
Yeah.
it's like, okay.
So I think, going back, that's if I could get in a time machine and go back, and you were saying to me, give your younger self one piece of advice, it'll be, don't fucking listen to anyone else. If you want to do it, just go for it.
Okay.
And if it doesn't work, at least you tried it. Done.
Okay, cool. Nice. So, well, that's exactly what I'm doing with this and with Eleutheria, which is this. I'll explain all of this probably before this video, but there's a whole meaning to this little scribble on the wall. So, but okay.
But you know what? It's like there's a saying that opinions are like arseholes. Everyone's got one.
Yeah.
And a lot of people want everyone to know what that opinion is. And they're very quick to imbibe that wisdom when they've never done it, never experienced it. You know, where you might say, I want to do something. Go,
Well, that's why it was. So I went to Thailand last year or the year before. It was last year.
Maybe a year before.
Almost 2 years ago.
Yeah.
now. But when I went, I realised that a lot of the stuff I wanted to do was a lot of the stuff that people didn't have. I can hear that.
I'm sorry.
Didn't have particular interest in entertaining at all. Not because it was like I want to go Mars or anything, but it was just because it's something they had no understanding of.
No.
And it was frustrating because it was like I was getting all these opinions from people that I looked up to, but then when I actually went out and was like, right, let me just go on my own to a different place and actually try and figure out what it is I want to do. And when there was no outside voice saying, oh, maybe you should do this, maybe you should go and do that, why would you do this? It became a lot clearer, a lot easier, and a lot... It became clearer a lot quicker.
Yeah.
Because I was like, hang on a minute, I really want to build this concept, Eleutheria. I want to build this up. I want to do all of this, and I want to see how it goes. And then I have someone like Mum, who I love and I respect, and her opinions hold a lot of value to me. But she's never built up a business before like that. No. So why am I taking it to extreme? Why am I getting advice from my mum who hasn't? And maybe I'm wrong for saying this, but I feel like it's held up until now, or it has been holding up. Is why would I take advice from someone who hasn't done or been where I want to be? So if I want advice on relationships, I'll probably talk to your mum. If I want advice on
Probably talk to Mum.
yeah, if I want advice on certain things, if I want advice on how to put up a shelf, I'll talk to you. Random example. If I wanted advice on how to dance, I'll talk to Mia. If I wanted advice on... but if I wanted advice on, say, for instance, how to build a brand or how to build a business or anything like that, maybe it won't happen straight away, but I'll start reaching out and connecting with the people that have been there and done that, because they're the people that are going to know what advice to give me and how to...
Don't ask me. I've never built a brand, so don't ask me.
No, I wasn't.
But no, it's exactly what you're. Yeah, you wouldn't come to me and go, Dad, I want to build this.
But that was the whole point.
Son. Well, I wouldn't go, well, is it something that people are going to, or maybe you should do. I can't say anything like that because I don't know.
No, I know, and that was the mantra. It was, for me, for a long time, it was know when not to listen to people. It was know when not to listen to people. Not everyone's going to understand you, or something along them lines.
Yeah.
Because when you take advice from people that don't actually know, it just is pointless.
It's
pointless. You're not going to
just
get
their
anywhere.
opinion. Yeah.
So it's like, why don't I figure it out for myself? If the people around me don't know, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
In terms, I'll see how it works and if it works for me and what I can make of it.
Yeah.
And if I've got people I can reach out to, I'll use that and reach out to them. But I'm not going to ask my mum on advice on how to build a business when she's my mum. She's the best mum in the world, but she's not a CEO. She's not known. So it's, for me personally, it was like, right, let me actually start. So when I want to improve the Muay Thai and get better and I'm fighting or whatever, let me speak to my coaches. I'm not going to listen to you about a training plan because you have no idea. You're starting to get an idea now, but it's speaking to the right people.
It's like football dads.
Oh, right, when they're
remember when
shouting from the sidelines.
Yeah. And probably the last time I played football was 35 years ago. Yet all of a sudden they know everything there is to know about coaching football. And that's why I used to shut up, because I didn't really know anything about football, and I'm not going to imbibe any opinion because it's irrelevant. It's exactly the same thing. Exactly the same thing.
Right, we have been going for 46 minutes,
Okay.
so we're doing well. I've got a few more cheeky little questions
go
to
on.
run off. I don't know if I've cut you off too much or not enough, because I know you like to ramble. But this one's a bit... I'm going to ask you this question, but it sounds like it's something I would ask you if you were dying. So I'm not asking it in that sense. I'm asking just if you weren't there at the time, if that makes sense. But when life gets hard for me, when I'm struggling, maybe I'm in a relationship, maybe I'm in a similar situation that you had, maybe you're not in the country, maybe you're just not there at that time to give me advice. If I'm going through something and I feel a bit lost, or I feel a bit confused, or I feel like the world's kind of caving in on me a bit, for when you're not there, what advice... Was that my leg shaking?
Yeah.
For when you're not there, what advice would you give to me to help me?
That's a good question, actually,
now?
isn't it?
So when life's getting hard for me, as my dad, what advice would you give me?
I think sometimes when you get in that situation, everything seems to be just closing in. Everything's too much. And I think sometimes you just have to kind of step. It's difficult to do it because you're in that moment, but sometimes you just need to kind of step back and kind of reset. You got to look at, okay, what's actually going on here? What's going on? What's happening? Why is it happening? And when I say step back, I mean look at things in a more broad. Because sometimes when you're going through a difficult time, you kind of you can't really see what's going on out. So you just focus. This is all. Sometimes it's good to step back and go, right, okay, what's actually happening here? What's going on that's causing this upset, and why is it happening? I think that's the first thing. Why is it happening? Okay, and then once you can establish that, okay, how can I address that? What can I do? What have I got control of? And there's that saying that life is 10% of what happens and 90% how you deal with it. And I think that's important to bear that in mind. Stuff that's going on that's outside your control, there's fuck all you can do about that. But what can you control? Well, you can control how you view something. You can either look at something in a negative way or a positive way. So when I went through that phase of when I had my business and it was acquired by that bigger company and it all fucked up and screwed up, and I effectively had to start again. Now, that was a point that was just like, what am I meant to do now? But I stepped and I thought, okay, what can I learn from this current situation? What can I take from this, and how can I do it better? But one of the things I did, I stepped back and I thought, right, what's going on that I can't control? And I kind of, in my mind, I separated that. And I thought, right, there's nothing I can do about that. So I'm just going to let that run its course. But what can I control? And how can I control it? And I think hopefully that's helpful. You know, if something's getting to, I think you've got to step back and go, right, what is going on that I've got no control over whatsoever? Because they're the things, fuck it, what are you going to do? You can't control the weather. You can't control how someone else thinks. So I'm not going to stress about that. But what I can control is how I feel about something, how I can change something. And a lot of the times when you get into a position like that, it's because you need to change how you're thinking about something. You need to change your mindset. You need to change your routine. You need to change how you're doing something.
No, your perspective on it.
You need to change your perspective on it. Now, things go on in your life. I'm not always going to be able to give you advice. You know, you might come to me and I'll go, well, I don't know, Zach. You're going to have to sort this one out. So then you're going to have to go, right, okay, right. And that's what I mean. When I say step back,
break it down.
Yeah, I mean subconsciously step back and go, right, you know, I'm having a really bad time in my relationship. I haven't got a job. Right, what can't I control? Take that out of the equation. Right, what can't I control? And then what can I control? Right, well, I can control I can't control how a person feels about me, but I can certainly change the way I feel about them and how I engage with them. So am I engaging with them in a way that's being quite counterproductive, and is it causing arguments? Yes, okay. So if I change my mindset there and treat them in a different way, a better way, that ultimately will have a knock-on effect to other things. Right? And then you go, okay, I haven't got a job. Right, okay, I can't control whether someone gives me a job or offers me a job, but I can certainly change my mindset and I can certainly change my outlook and go, do you know what? I'm just going to apply for every job. If it comes in, brilliant. And I think that's important to change the way you look at things, because not everyone's going to be able to give you, no one's going to give you a magic bit of advice that's going to make whatever situation you're in better.
It's
Only you can do
how
that.
you deal with that situation.
It's how you deal with it. Life is 10% what happens and 90% how you deal with it.
Okay.
So if I was never around, and I'd say the same thing to Mia, break it down. Okay. And I've always, and I've only learned that in the last, few years is when I'm out, I do a lot of driving.
So this is a lesson that's taken you 50 years to learn.
Yeah. And I think there's a degree of acceptance where you go, do you know what? I've been kind of pushing that back, but this is the way to do it. You know, if I'm out on the driving, I can't. Like I got friends of mine that get really stressed when they're driving. Fucking hell, what's he doing? Why is he always cut me up? Right. I go, right, I can't control how other people drive, but what I can control is how I perceive that and how I look at that.
Yeah, yeah.
If I allow myself to stress because someone's driving like a fucking idiot, why do I care how they're driving? So if I see someone driving like a cop, right, I hang back. I'm going to stay away from them. I'm going to drive in that lane, not that lane.
So essentially, you're taking your situation you're in, stepping back and going, okay, let me compartmentalize this into what I can control.
Yeah, exactly.
What I can't
That's
control.
what I think. That's what I think.
And taking them stuff I can't control and just
going, right, I can't control that. I can't control the weather. I can't control how people think of me. I can't control how people drive. I can't control whether I get a job or not. I can control the effort that I put in, but it doesn't matter. If someone doesn't want to give me a job, they won't give me a job. Or they won't do so. there's so many things that you can control yourself that people just, I don't know, they're just lazy to, or they go, oh, I can't do it. Oh.
But I also think there's so many things people can't control that they think they can,
And they
stress
focus
out.
so much on them, and they stress out. I can't control how someone drives. So why am I going to bother getting stressed about it? I
Okay,
drive
yeah,
now.
I
I'm
get it.
more. I drive more now than I ever did, and I'm so relaxed when I drive because I know I can't control anything that's going on outside that car. All I can control is how I'm driving and how I react to other people.
Gotcha.
And if I react in a
By the way, the reason why you talk about driving is because you run a chauffeur company,
Yes.
hence the driving.
yes, I run the chauffeur company, but I do a lot of driving because I just hate being in the office. So my business partner, she runs the office, she runs the operations, and I do a lot of driving. I'm in the office, I help out. I like to be out on the road.
Okay.
So
So,
years ago, I used to get, what's in there?
but now it's just
Now I
step
couldn't
back.
care less. I'm so relaxed when I drive now.
I'm pretty relaxed when I drive,
Yeah.
to be fair. I'm kind of chill.
Because what are you going to do? What? Geezers cut you up. What? What's that? And?
Alright, I do have one more question.
Go on then.
I'd asked this before, and you said you weren't happy with
Yeah.
what you said about it.
Right.
Because I remember when we spoke before, you were like, oh, I don't know.
Go on then.
But as my dad, what does love mean to you?
Oh. Love. Okay. So I think love is a very subjective emotion. You know, I mean, it's hard to define love. I think love as an emotion is a mix of many, many different
But
things.
what does it mean to you?
What does it mean to me is commitment, devotion, commitment, understanding. I don't know, having just a connection there, you know, just understanding someone.
Mm.
You know, we could say, well, we love the dog. Why do we love the dog? Why do we love the dog? Because he doesn't, all he wants is just, he's simple. He's an idiot. All he wants is to have a walk,
He's also pretty damn
to
cute.
be fed,
He's
and
pretty cute as well.
every time we walk through the door, he's happy to see you. Right? Why do I love your mum? Right? For different reasons. Because I know your mum's always going to be there for me. She's always going to be there for me. She's always going to support me. She's always going to support you and Mia. Right? I don't think you can explain love. I think it's just a very emotive feeling.
Mm. You have to experience it.
Yeah. You know, when Mia was first born, all I felt was panic. You know, because she was born so early and I didn't
Yeah,
feel
yeah.
love. I think, oh, Lord. I just felt panic. I was like, fuck, what's going. When you were born, it was different. You came out and I was like, wow. That's my. It was only afterwards with Mia. I was like, you know, when everything had settled down, I was like,
She was the first child, though, wasn't it? So
Yeah.
it was all going through the
Yeah.
first time. It was.
and there was a point where I sat and she was in a little incubator and I just sat there looking at her and thought, wow, look at that. Now, that's love, I think. Yeah, it is. Of course it is.
Yeah.
And when you were little, it was just like, it's that kind of, you know, I would do anything for this person, this thing, this, you know, this individual. I would do anything.
But you're speaking about
Without
love from
hesitation.
a father's perspective.
I think it's the same.
Generally, you think it's.
I think true. Yeah, they talk about true love. I think it's one of those things where, without hesitation, you would do whatever it took for that person.
I suppose that can't really be explained, or
You can't explain it.
you
It's.
just-
I don't think you can. I think love is a very. I think it's a very strong emotion. I think it's a mixture of things. Like, you can have couples that you watch them and they're fighting, they're shouting, but they love each other. It's just without measure. And you think, but they're always fighting. They're always screaming at each other. But they would die for each other. So how do you explain? You know, how do you explain? And then you get other people, couples, very rarely say a word to each other. Don't do anything. But again, they would do anything for each other. So I think it's very subjective. I think it depends on the individual. I think everyone has their own version of love. You know, some people, I love my car. Do you really? Like, if someone nicked it or it was damaged, would you,
go to the ends of the earth?
Yeah, would you go into the ends of the earth to find it? Maybe they would. I don't know. You know, I don't know. But I don't know what, love to me, I think it's an unspoken thing. You know, it's like, I would do anything for you, for me, or for mum. Anything. You know, if someone said, you've got to lay down your life for sale, I wouldn't even hesitate. And I say that without hesitation. And I know, and to me, I think it's a very difficult emotion to quantify.
Okay.
Because I think it's really down to the individual. And I know how I feel about you, Mia, and your mum.
And I know how I feel about you. You stink.
Well, you were battering me sparring. Why still hurts.
But no, it is. Can't really put it into words, can you?
You can't. And anyone that says they can, I think they're bullshitting.
You can't really understand.
You ask anyone
in words.
What's love to you? Everyone will struggle to answer it. I guarantee.
And some people will have different answers as well. It's not one.
Love to me is
defined thing.
Yeah, love to me is a couple. No, that's just being together. What does love? How do you quantify love in your world? Ask anyone, they will all struggle to answer that question. What does love mean to you? They'll go,
because but you just can't put it into words.
Do you know what I've seen? I think this kind of highlights it. I'm not really one for social media and all that thing, but there's a couple of things that I've seen where, and I think it's actually horrible that people have filmed it and then put it on social media. But then
what are you on about?
I'm going to tell you in a minute. But then I think, well, I'm watching it. So there's a few videos I've seen where it's a really old couple. Like, they're in their 90s. They've been married for... I think there was one recently that I stumbled across when I was looking at some Muay Thai techniques. Weirdly enough, it just came up.
What was this, on Facebook?
It was on... I can't remember. I can't remember. And it was a couple that had been married for 80 years. So he was nearly 100 and the woman was 97 or something. And they'd been together for pretty much their entire life. And he was ill and she was just... it was just... I couldn't watch all of it.
Yeah,
because,
no, I won't watch it.
You know, she was just like... You're sleeping. I love you. And these are
Why are you watching these videos?
That is love.
Yeah,
that is love. And then what happens is you find when that happens, they pass it, and then pretty soon the other partner passes because they're just heartbroken. And that is love. That is love. No matter what, they're there until the end. That is love.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
There we go. You kind of said a lot, but nothing at the same time. No, I get it. I really do get it.
I just think it's a very difficult emotion to quantify, and I think everyone will have a different answer, and I think everyone would have difficulty in giving you a solid, concise, robust answer.
Okay, fair. We're gonna call it a night with that one. We're going for an hour, by the way.
Hour and 3 minutes.
Guys,
I thought you was going to ask me about the Muay Thai. Maybe next time.
Maybe next time we'll bring that. We did mention it, but it just didn't. We'll bring it. Don't worry. But so bear with. There might be some audio things, filming, blah blah. But with each episode, I'm gonna improve on everything. So please bear with. I'm just trying to get this out and get this kind of rolling, basically. So all will be explained with the scribbling on the wall. Hope you like the set. Hope you like the set, by the way. I've actually worked hard on this. Listen, don't...
We won't tell everyone what's in the background behind the camera.
All of these... This is all the posters in the whole room. The room goes way out there and there's nothing.
Well, we got a tumble dryer, fridge, punch bag, my biking stuff.
Yeah, boots. It's only this bit that's nice. This bit that matters. Innit? Yeah. Lovely. But anyway, so... hope you guys enjoyed. Okay, and that's episode 1. Thank you. I'm not leaving. well you are because it's the end of the episode.
I'm not leaving.
Don't do this. Last time I did this so long. But yeah, we'll get you back on.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'll have to call up the PR and see what they think.
Talk to my agent.
Go from there. But
Right.
anyway,
Thank
nice
you.
one. Cheers.
Cheers, son. Here we go. All right. What's the time?